And we're back. I'm Griselda, and this is Real Estate Profits on Now Media Television. Let's keep building smarter together. Hello, and welcome to Real Estate Profits. I'm Griselda, your host, and this is Now Media Television. And today we have a very dear guest, attorney Christopher Nudo from NTegrity Law, LLC, based out of Chicago. And the topic is about protecting real estate investments through estate planning. That's something that we all know we should do, want to get started, and we put it off for a year and another year. And essentially, we don't have someone to guide us like Chris to really put it all together. So really don't know how the real estate assets fit into the estate plan, and it kind of just feels like an afterthought. But we have Christopher Nudo here from NTegrity Law joining us. And I read your bio, very interesting. I would love for you to share with our audience a little bit about, how you run your law firm. Obviously there's a lot of faith-based, concepts in how you proceed, which is a little unique and different. When we talk about, value proposition, you have a very unique one in your law firm. Can you tell us about that, Chris?
Absolutely. And thanks for having me. We launched NTegrity Law based on Christian principles. We think maintaining a strong value system in our community is important. Paying back to the community in every way that we can really resonates with the folks in the area. And those core Christian beliefs, we hold very dear to ourselves, and
yes,
we share with our clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And so it's very unique, right? Because you don't really see that anywhere. I know I haven't seen it. I read your bio and I was very impressed. I'm like, wow, people are not just a number, or you're not just going from the one case to the next case to the next client. You really treat someone like a person. You get to understand their needs, and really you bring this biblical, philosophy, it seems like, right? So it develops a trust, I'm sure, amongst your clients, right?
That's absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So now let's get into a little bit about the topic here on real estate investing and estate planning. So that's one of your areas of expertise. I know there are many, but why is it important to include real estate holdings in one's estate planning, Chris?
Well, I always like to start from the beginning and say that estate planning is really nothing more than making sure that you've directed your assets to the people you want to receive, who you want to receive your assets, and having the right people in charge of your estate when you die. And, real estate often makes up a great portion of somebody's portfolio, whether it's just your single family home or whether you're an investor with several properties. Ensuring that when you die, there is clear direction as to how those properties are to be treated and to whom is supposed to be in charge of them and where ultimately they're supposed to go is absolutely essential.
Absolutely. And like you say, when it's a single family home, whether it's a mansion or a small home, whatever it is, you want to make sure that it falls into the right hands. But now you also mentioned the investing side of it. So let's talk about that, because obviously as real estate investors, an entrepreneur would have multiple properties, residential or commercial. So what strategies can investors use to ensure that their properties are passed on according to their wishes? And keep in mind, it could be that they split those up and they want it to go into several streams or different people. What strategies do you have for our investors?
I'll just mention a few. The first one is using the limited liability model, which, in certain states, limited liability companies can be individual companies, or you can create what's called a series LLC. And when we put individual properties into either a standalone limited liability company, or we create a series LLC, which imagine just a master LLC with a number of them in succession below.
Got
it. In each instant, we can direct different outcomes. We can treat the profits differently. We can treat the ownership differently. We can treat the manager or the person in charge differently. So this gives us ultimate it gives us a lot of flexibility in the way we treat each property. So if an investor has multiple partners,
Yes.
different people, each LLC or each series in the LLC can be treated differently. We can even treat each property different for tax purposes. So it
Oh,
creates tremendous flexibility.
so if you have some people have investments like ourselves, we have investments across 5 different states, my husband and I. So it's important to know that you need to really understand the nuances within those different states where you're invested in, right? And so it makes a difference. Now, what
Absolutely.
about, so for example, some of the complexities that I hear out there is, hey, I have 35 different properties. Wonderful. Obviously, they're investing all over the place. But does that mean that they could potentially have 35 different LLCs if they want to keep those separately?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
And they could even have multiple LLCs over multiple jurisdictions if their properties cross different states.
Mhm.
And, if you're looking for that real isolation, that protection that against a slip and fall or cross contamination between creditors or things of that nature, the limited liability company works really well. However, if you are not as concerned about that limited liability that the LLC provides. Using trusts works just as well. And you can use one trust or multiple trusts and create that same type of isolation.
Okay. Now give us a difference between why a trust versus an estate. Like, what would be the difference, and why would you go one way versus the other?
That's a fantastic question. So, a trust is an instrument within an estate. So there are many documents that we use in estate planning. We
Okay.
use the common will. We use various trusts. We use powers of attorney. All of these things, when we bring them together,
Uh-huh.
that's considered an estate plan. So when we talk about the estate, it could have multiple vehicles. It could have the trusts. It could have the wills. It could even have the limited liability companies like we discussed. And many times, depending on the size of the investor, we can intertwine many of these concepts together.
Wonderful, absolutely. So now let's go back to the faith base. So obviously you're protecting people's assets, right? You're making sure that they're passed on to whomever the families would like to pass them on. So what about the faith-based concept of really taking care of your customers, taking care of the people, and making sure, number one, that they understand, but also that as they pass on, they have that peace of mind that their assets are going to go to according to their wishes, whatever it is that they wanted to divide the most by. But tell me a little bit about how you intertwine the integrity side of it and that trust factor to take care of your customers.
I hear very often that my clients had been with other attorneys. They sit
Yeah.
down with other attorneys, and basically that attorney just tells them, hey, this is what I'm doing for you. And they use confusing jargon. They basically just say, this is what you're going to pay me, and this is what I'm going to do. And the clients leave the meeting with a vague understanding of what's going on. At NTegrity Law, we really changed that by stopping and listening to what's important to our clients. We we want to know what are your values? What are your family values? How does the family relate? Families aren't all the same. As a matter of fact, I think as many families as there are differences. And
Yes.
so in each client, understanding, sitting and listening and knowing what it is they want. And then I take paper to pen, pen to paper, and I craft the documents to accomplish what they want. And then, most importantly, I take out all the legal jargon. Now,
Okay.
it might be in the documents themselves just for legal protection, but I ensure that I go through those documents with each client and explain to them this is where we have taken the time to craft the outcome that you're looking for based on your goals and values.
Absolutely. And you know what? I'm here listening to you, and I wish I had met you several years ago when I did my trust and my estate and my will, because exactly how you described it, right? I felt it was a number, it's a questionnaire. This is my fee, and fill out these questions. And, my husband and I went off and did that. And there was no personal feeling to it, right? It was just a matter of completing a transaction, right? I was a number, I was paying my fees, and I was actually getting that done. But, obviously yours is different. So highly recommend people out there, if you're planning your will, your estate, trust, any of that, NTegrity Law and Christopher Nudo is here to guide you through that process. Like I say, I wish I would have met you several years ago. Ours is done, but heck, if we need to update or anything, I know who to call.
Thank you.
But now, how does proper estate planning really give you that peace of mind for real estate investors and for families? I mean, you've talked to us about the process per se, but as they engage with you in the different philosophy that you bring, how does that give people a peace of mind to work with you or your firm?
I always start with trying to establish the goals, because
Okay.
everybody comes in and they know they're there for estate planning and they know they own a lot of real estate, but they don't really understand what their ultimate goal is. And you should never approach anything that you're going to do in life without knowing what your ultimate outcome is supposed to be. So goals that I speak to, items that I bring up with my clients is their estate going to be subject to any type of estate tax? So
Uh-huh.
if it is, how do we minimize it? How do we develop the right tools to have a smooth transfer of the asset when they die? Um, Creditor protection. Are their children creditor protected? And I always say this, and it shocks people. The greatest transfer of wealth doesn't come from when people die. Honestly, it can come from divorcing children. Children where their
Hmm.
spouses get divorced, if the
Okay.
assets get commingled as marital property, now your assets, which your children have inherited, go off with a divorcing spouse.
Oh,
That's
wow.
often not an outcome people desire. And so
Right.
it's creating that type of creditor protection for your children. Um, Addressing special circumstances. Unfortunately, in today's society, we have a lot of children who have health challenges, and
Yes.
they might be on Medicaid, or Social Security or something at a very young age because of their health challenges. And so
Yes.
making sure that we do special needs trust and various specific planning to really take in the characteristic of that family unit.
Absolutely. So wonderful. And thank you for sharing all of those strategies, the peace of mind, and really that trust factor, right? I actually fall into that category of,
Mm,
having someone in our family that, has been served well by different, psychologists and help that we received medically. But it makes a difference, absolutely makes a difference. So I'm here to testify that absolutely how you do that, it matters, right? And obviously, when you're just diving into it and learning it all, you need someone like Chris in your office to really bring it all together and help you understand and help you give you that peace of mind for your estate planning. Chris, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your experience. We've learned a
thank you.
lot. Appreciate it very much. This is Real Estate Profits, and I'm your host, Griselda, with Now Media Television. We'll be right back. We'll be right back with more ways to optimize, scale, and succeed. This is Real Estate Profits on Now Media Television.